All right, this is the very first page of your vocabulary. You should have everything filled in except the very bottom one about congruent segments. So a congruent segment, if two segments have the same length, then they are congruent. And we know in our hearts that when we think congruent, it means the same as equal, and the symbol is that squiggle. So I'm going to draw two lines, or two segments, AB, and let's call this one XY. And AB is 7, and XY is 7. That's the same. So I would say that segment AB is congruent to segment XY. So add that little example, glue your paper down, flip over to the next side. All right, I need you to add 2 onto this one. Segment addition postulate. If A, B, and C are collinear points and B is between A and C, then segment AB plus segment BC equals AC. Those are too many words. I want you to know that a part plus a part equals a whole. So let's draw a line. I'm going to give it some parts. A, B, C. All right. So if I take AB and I add it, so if I take this first part and I add it to the second part, it's going to equal, wait for it, the whole thing. So AC. So the whole thing. All right, we know that. We've done that a ton of times. The last vocabulary word for Unit 2 is a segment bisector. It's a segment, line, or plane that intersects a segment at its midpoint. We know that midpoint means middle. So I'm going to draw a line. All right, here we got our segment. And if this were the middle, I would mark it with these marks, and that tells me that both those parts are the same. If I draw a line like that through it, I have a bisector. It's cutting that line in half. So add your pictures, glue your paper down, flip over to, actually just follow along for a minute. Just watch and pay attention. I just want to review this part that we've done. So if RT is 36, so the whole thing is 36, find the value of X. So I'm going to use a part plus a part equals a whole. We're just going to practice writing it. So remember, our first part would be that 6X plus 1. Part, second part, plus X plus 7. So a part plus a part equals the whole thing, 36. And then we would solve it. Part plus a part equals a whole. I'm going to do one with the midpoint now. If T is the midpoint of line SU, so line SU is the whole thing. If T is right in the middle, I know that this side and this side are the same. So it says to find X. So when I have a midpoint, I'm going to set up my equation. I'm going to take 8X plus 11. And because of these marks, I know that they are exactly the same. So I'm just going to set them equal to each other. Okay, so midpoint, you do part equals part. And in the other ones, it's just a part plus a part equals a whole. That was just a review. Now we're going to look at our word problems. This is page 1.14. Okay, we've already done this one. It should be completed. A hiking trail is 20 kilometers long. I'm reading number 3. Park organizer wants to build 5 rest stops for hikers with 1 on each end of the trail and 3 spaced evenly between. How much distance will separate the successive stops. So I'm going to draw a picture so it'll be easier. So it said we have a trail with bathrooms on each end, and there's one on each end, but there's 5 total. So there's all my bathroom stops. And it says they're evenly spaced. So that segment is equal to that segment, is equal to that segment, is equal to that segment. So I can give them all the same name, X, 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 and X. So, and the whole thing is 20 kilometers. So all I'm going to do is my part, plus my part, plus my part, plus my part. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 parts. So 4x equals, the whole thing is 20. Solve this and it will tell you the distance between each stop. So I'm just going to help you set these up. I'm not going to solve them for you. So number 4, a straight railroad track is built to connect 2 cities. Okay, here's my railroad track, city, city. The measured distance of the track between the 2 cities is 160.5 miles. So the whole thing is 160.5. A mail stop is 28.5 miles from the first city. So let's put a mail stop in right there. And we know this part is 28.5. How far is the mail stop from the second city? So I'm trying to figure out how much that section is. I don't know, so let's call it X. So I'm just going to set this up. A part plus a part equals a whole. 28.5 plus X equals the whole thing, 160.5. Solve that, you'll get your answer. 5. Lucy's younger brother has 3 wooden cylinders. They have a height of 8 inches, 4 inches, and 6 inches, and can be stacked one on top of the other. If all 3 cylinders are stacked one on top of the other, how high will the column be? So that's your first question to solve. How high if you stack all those up? So if I do 8, 4, and 6, how tall would that be? And does it matter what order they're stacked in? That would be a yes or a no. Okay, well, after you answer that, let's look at the next part. What are all the possible heights of the columns that can be built by stacking some or all of the cylinders? Well, if you stack them all, you'll get 18. So we know that's a possible height. What if I just did the 8 and the 4? That's a 12. So I'd get 12. Or I could just do the 4 and the 6. That would be 10. Or I could do, so let's see, I've done them all. I've done 8 and 4. I've done 4 and 6. Let's do 8 to 6. 8 plus 6. That's 14. So those are all your choices. And I did that one for you. Write the answer down. Okay, flip over to page 1.15. It should look like this, 1.15. All right, we're going to talk about the distance formula. We're going to talk about distance for a minute before you start taking notes, so just watch. So, if I have a point here and a point here, and this is my line, and I ask you what the distance is, 1, 2, 3. The answer is 3. Easy. If I have a point here and a point here, and this is my line, and I ask you what the distance is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The answer is 7. We have a problem when, like in this picture, I have a line that's not up and down or side to side. I can't count that. It doesn't just count out. But some math genius somewhere figured out a formula we can use when we know the 2 points to get the distance when we can't just count it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So the distance formula is super ugly, but as long as you put everything in the right order, it's not bad. So d, distance, equals the square root of parenthesis x2 minus x1, close your parenthesis, squared, plus y2 minus y1 squared. Pause this, copy that down. You've got to have it neat and exactly how I wrote it. So, in number 1, find the distance between the 2 points on the graph. Well, first we got to know where the points are. So let's look at the point up top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, negative 5, 3. So my first point is negative 5, 3. My second point, 1, 2, negative 2, 1, 2, 3, negative 3. Negative 2, negative 3. So I have 2 points. And I'm going to label them. We know that that's an X, that's a Y, that's an X, that's a Y. It's a law. We know that. This is group 1, so X1, Y1. Group 2, X2, Y2. Okay. Now I'm going to write out the formula. You can do that or you can just copy what I do. All right, I wrote out my formula. Now, instead of X2, I'm going to put what it is. So I'm going to erase this guy, and its number is negative 2. Instead of x1, I'm going to put what its number is. I'm going to erase that and put negative 5. Instead of y2, I'm going to put a negative 3. And instead of y1, I put a 3. So let's erase. So the hardest part of all of that is getting the right numbers in the right order. Once you do that, it's really easy. What I want you to do now is ignore the square root for right now. Don't worry about it. I want you to, then we would type this exactly how it's written into your calculator. Parenthesis negative 2 minus negative 5 parenthesis squared plus parenthesis negative 3 minus 3 parenthesis squared. When you type that in and hit enter, you will get the answer as 45. So then I'm going to put the square root back on it. So the exact answer for the distance is the square root of 45. Well, that don't tell you anything, right? We don't know what that means. So now I want you to square root it. To do that, for the square root, hit your blue button on your calculator and then hit x squared and it'll give you a square root. So if you do square root 45 in your calculator and hit enter, you will get a big ugly decimal. Those squiggles mean approximately because this number goes on and on forever. I'm going to write it out 4 decimal places. So the exact answer is d equals the square root of 45. The approximate answer, which makes a lot more sense to us, is 6.7082. Okay? So I would like for you to do number 2 on your own. First, label your points, x1, y1, x2, y2, and then d equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So fill in the numbers for the x's and y's, and then I want you to get me an exact answer. D equals the square root of the number you get, and then I want you to square root it and get me an approximate answer. Thank you.